Unexplained. I knew my mom was dead when things in my house started happening. Bit of a backstory. When I was about 10, my mother started experimenting with drugs. They ended up tearing my childhood apart. Around age 12, I had to resort to stealing food from friends, stealing money, and just in general had it really rough. I moved out at 15, but this isn't about me. Before age 10, my life was pretty good. Normal even. After the drugs, my mom changed, and I never saw that version of her again. Our relationship was as good as it could have been. I still looked at her as my mom, and she loved me as her son. Addiction is a bitch. When she was high, she was her just sketchy, but sometimes she would have these weird snaps of total lucidity and intelligence, borderline prophetic. Now, anyone who knows a drug addict knows that they say some pretty out there shit. She was no different, but anyone who knows will also know that they will sometimes be them again for snapshots of time. I was 25, and I hadn't gone to her house in about a year. She invited me over to have dinner. I could tell right away that she was high, but I didn't want to embarrass her, so I just enjoyed myself and made her know that I was appreciative. During dinner, as I was in the middle of telling her about my work, she cut me off and said, "I'll drop the guitar." To which I said, "Sorry? You dropped a guitar?" And she says, "Hey, what are you talking about?" "You just said something about my guitar," I said again. "Honey, I didn't say anything. I was listening about your job." I didn't think much of it. Life for us both went on as normal. On my 30th birthday, she phoned me to catch up and give me birthday wishes. The conversation wasn't a good one. She started crying, was apologetic, and just not doing well. While I was talking her down and consoling her, she said in that same tone, "I hope the TV doesn't break." To which again I replied with confusion. Again, she didn't believe me when I asked her what she meant. When I was 29, her addiction had hit a point where I had to finally just distance myself. I didn't talk to her until I was 32. I called her to just make sure she was okay. The conversation was sad, as she acted like time didn't exist and that we never had any fights or anything. Her mind was just gone, replaced by the worst type of addict. As I was wrapping up the call, she said, "I'm just really sorry about the smell. I can't fucking help it." But this time she sounded so sad, like one of the saddest tones I'd ever heard, and I don't know why. In April 2022, I hadn't spoken to her in years. I was about to head to a friend's place with my wife, and as we were heading out the door, we heard a loud bang from our spare room. When I went in, I found my guitar, which is a wall-mounted Les Paul, heavy guitar for those who don't play, across the room. While it definitely spooked me, it wasn't until the drive when my wife said, "Hey, didn't your mom say something about a guitar years ago?" Which got me a bit, weirded out. When we got home, I tried to call her to see if she'd remember. No answer. The next day, I'm gaming in the living room with my wife, and my TV just falls directly forward. This is a 4-legged 30-pound TV on a flat surface. No wind, no kids, no pets, it just fell. A few days go by, and as my wife and I were dead asleep, we both shot up wide awake to the sound of a loud bang from the side room, followed by what sounded like a couple foot stomps. I checked the room. The guitar again was across the room, but this time I was legitimately scared as I made absolutely sure that it was mounted. It just wasn't possible. That Friday, I get a call from my brother. The police called him and let him know that she had died. I flew back home to take care of whatever came next. I was the only person since the police hazmat services to enter the house. Turns out she had been dead for 3 weeks in the home. The smell is something that I will never ever be able to erase from my memory. I'm not a superstitious person. I wasn't raised with that type of stuff. My life has taught me to be real, see real, and rely on things I can objectively prove. I didn't know where else to post this, but the unexplained nature of these drug-fueled, nearly prophetic premonitions about her own death, and how she will let me know, has forever changed me, explained or not.
You/Nakramu. Wow, your life story is so touching, and you relate it so well here. I'm so glad that you have appeared to come out of all of this so grounded. Not easy, as many children sadly carry on the legacy of their parents, following by example, and I certainly can relate to having downfalls as a parent. I can relate also to the weird experiences, as I've witnessed many during the passings of loved ones, especially. I knew when my grandfather died and I was miles away on my honeymoon, just had an overwhelming feeling, and started bawling my eyes out. When my grandmother was passing, she told my mother and I she could see her husband, mother and father and brothers who had passed before her, all waiting for her. When my dad was passing, he told us his mum was in the room with us. She had died suddenly when he was 9. And after he passed, we awoke the next morning to his name in capital letters Ray written in sand art. My mum ordered him, but he never got to enjoy. When my mum passed in her home, where I was living also as her caregiver, moments after she took her last breath, a hall light that hadn't worked in ages flickered on and off several times and then stayed on. There was around 20 of us there that witnessed it. She had been mentioning for a while before she passed how she wanted to get that fixed. And when my uncle was passing, my mum's bro, my cousin and aunt told us that he said his mum was in the room with them also. I've had many strange experiences throughout my life, and as much as I want to explain these things away logically, I can't. It seems there are things beyond our human understanding. Sorry to hear of the loss of your mum. OP.
I appreciate it. I like to think that I'm a good person with a long way to go. My mom ironically taught me to always try and treat myself to learning and growth. And in a morbid way, I feel like her lifestyle was educational. How easy one can succumb to addictions and untreated mental support. It brings me comfort knowing that these experiences may not always have an explanation, but they belong to us nonetheless.
There was most likely a part of your mom that was broken a bit, and the drugs filled the void. I am so sorry, and I know your mother is finally at peace, free from the addictions. I've got a towel that flaps when either my or my daughter are in heavy grief. Just lost hubby less than 6 months ago, and as a kid got weird phone calls from a dead grandpapa. So I know there are things that are not to our understanding. Just don't be afraid. I don't fear loved ones dropping by. Edit, I posted this, then read further down where you mentioned your mom's troubled past. Sending you a hug.
Comment by OP.
I know I said I'm not superstitious, but I suppose that's not heartfully true. She raised us in Norse pagan tradition, so while I may not be superstitious, I definitely am spiritual. While I don't have any answers, I now know through my experiences that energies, realms, and spiritual boundaries are very much real. Since bringing her ashes into my home, nothing has happened. And if anything, I feel like my mom, the one I had when I was a child, is finally with me again. I feel good having her here, and I think she likes it here too.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but this one was rather enjoyable for me. There's a lot of support for OP, and while I am certainly not superstitious or spiritual in this manner, it's still a good read, and I do enjoy these kinds of stories. My condolences, OP, and I wish you well. Moving on, I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. Again, I'm always open to criticism. Anything you guys can tell me will help. Let me know what you guys thought of the story in the description, and share any stories you guys might have as well. The link to the original post, as always, will be in the description, and make sure to follow for new videos every day.